Hey man, made a Vocalist tier list about a year ago now, and all I really remember from it was the 11,000 comments I received on how dumb I was, but also the other 4,000 comments suggesting Vocalists I missed, so I thought I'd kill two birds with one stone and remaster my Vocalist tier list. My criteria today is twofold. I like when they sing well, and I like when they sing words that mean something to me. That's about it really. Without further ado, hop into our first Vocalist. Aaron Lewis of Stained, incredibly underrated vocalist masked behind his now relatively tumultuous presence in the music scene. Very talented bastard, though. Incredible live performer. If he wasn't kind of an asshole, I think he'd be closer to legend status, but I can't say I'm a huge fan of the direction he took his career in. The heavy rock singer in the country hick pipeline is not a favorite of mine. Like an A tier. Adam Levine of Maroon 5, painfully average vocalist, nothing too soul-changing about his voice. I've never heard a Maroon 5 song and been moved to tears. He's always taking his shirt off on stage, which I find kind of annoying. Keep it in your pants, buddy. And now that he's pushing 50, it's starting to get a little uncomfortable. No incredible poetry out of this guy either. You listen to this guy, you get an average performer, I think. I'm gonna go C tier. Alex Turner of the Arctic Monkeys, can't say I'm his biggest fan, but I can respect his talent. It's alright. He's not really that incredible, to be honest. Some better songwriting than you're getting out of Adam Levine, but I wouldn't say it's apples and oranges there. Top of the C tier, I can't say he's worse than Adam Levine. That would be absurd. Amy Lee of Evanescence, perhaps a touch overrated, I'm afraid. The early 2000s weren't exactly dominated by female rock presences, so showing up is actually going to net her some points here. She does have a fairly incredible voice, especially when she goes for a more touching ballad-esque track. But I'd say her actual songwriting does leave a little bit to be desired. I'm gonna go back of A. Anthony Kiedis of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I bet you know where this is going. Typically prefer my vocalists to not be absolutely abhorrent people. If you disagree, I don't really care. Mr. Kiedis isn't all that talented of a vocalist regardless, though. Very, extremely, unbearably poor lyricism from this guy. Most notably when he sings about the children he's sleeping with, but doesn't get much better either way. Anthony Kiedis returns to his throne of dead last place in his own tier. Axl Rose of Guns N' Roses, one of the most requested vocalists I didn't include in my original video, and to be perfectly honest, I don't really understand why. He's solid for sure, had a pretty great voice for a very brief moment in history, and then kind of devolved into being, well, the worst person you know. Unless you know Anthony Kiedis, I guess, then perhaps the second worst person you know. Lyrically, he doesn't do much for me. I typically find he's just kind of blabbering, but it's not as though his music demands much more. I think this is a B-tier vocalist. Beth Gibbons of Portishead. This is one of the greatest all time, for sure. Incredible lyricist, not the greatest to ever do that, but certainly one of the greatest to ever touch the microphone. The Live in New York City album alone is enough to net her a top spot here, but even in the studio, she's got one of the most dynamic, quite honestly incredible voices I've ever heard. I'm going GOAT tier. Billy Joe Armstrong of Green Day. I am a certified Green Day hater, but I'll give Billy his flowers. But not from a vocalist standpoint. I think he's solid enough in that regard, but from a songwriting perspective, he's at least got a little gumption. He also just seems like a cool guy. I've seen him invite fans to play on stage. He's cool. I don't hate him. Top of the C tier still. I mean, he's not that good. Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins. I am a certified Smashing Pumpkins lover. But I'm not going to look you in the eye and tell you he's a great vocalist, for that probably wouldn't be true. I do think his voice does fit his music really well, but I can't argue him as one of the greatest to ever do it. I do have an absurd respect for the guy as a songwriter, though. Some of my favorite lyrics in music, period, come from this guy, before the incident. He does kind of stink as a person, super pretentious, drove the band apart in the 90s. Not the guy you want leading your band, but a great writer for sure. That's going to net him a spot in the A tier at the top. Bono of U2. 90% of my knowledge of U2 comes from the album they forcibly downloaded onto my iPhone in 2014, so I don't know much. I do know the name is legendary. He's a pretty great vocalist from the songs I have heard. Pretty iconic lyricist too, I'd say. Just can't really put him much higher than B due to my own lack of ball knowledge, and I will not subject myself to much more U2 than I already have. So top of the B tier. Brandon Boyd of Incubus, a personal favorite of mine. That's not really true, but I did grow up on a lot of Incubus. I think he's incredibly underrated as a live vocalist, especially in the 90s, and he seems like a really down-to-earth guy. I'm a big fan. I think he has some great range, especially on projects like Morning View. Pretty great songwriter as well. Wrote some very sweet shit back in the day. I'm gonna go top of the beats here. Brent Hinds of Mastodon. Low-key a goat right here. I say that, he will not be goat tier. I don't know how to explain that to you. One of the more talented cats in the metal scene, I'd say. His ability to switch from the fairly generic metal kind of growl to a genuinely beautiful voice reminds me a lot of Maynard. If he was just a little less good at songwriting. Still wrote some incredible songs, though. Very sweet stuff, especially on Crack the Sky. I'd say top of the 8 here. Brent Smith of Shinedown. Really talented motherfucker right here. Had he not exclusively written butt rock for his entire career, this guy would probably place much higher, but he never really used a borderline legendary voice to write anything slightly interesting, and the waste of potential actually angers me more than someone like Dave Mustaine who just outwardly sucks, but with confidence. Top of the C tier for this guy. Cameron Winter of Geese, honestly, kinda goated. First time you hear this guy's voice, you'll do a borderline inexplicable hand motion. You'll reach out to almost nothing out of sheer confusion, but no, this is a natural reaction. His voice is extremely unique. I've genuinely never heard anyone else sing like this in my life, and while I'm not even sure if it's good, it works so well with the music this guy's written. Solid lyricist, I think, as well. Nothing too crazy, but the guy's got pipes, dear viewer, even if I'm completely unsure what those pipes consist of. S tier. Chad Kroger of Nickelback. He sucks. D tier. Chester Bennington of Linkin Park. I'm actually a little concerned about my safety for this one. Chat. He's mid. No, that's not true, but I don't put him in that vocal legend status that a lot of other people do. I think he was an incredible vocalist, but not quite living up to the praise some people give him. Very cool person, though, very down-to-earth. Wrote some pretty solid lyrics in his time, but certainly fell off the horse at some point in his career. Regardless, top of the S tier. Gino Moreno of Deftones. I love this guy, and now that songwriting's involved, I think we've got a goat on our hands. Really talented guy in the studio, maybe just flat out my favorite guy to hear in the booth, but live, oh man. Very alright stuff, very hit or miss to be honest as well. Some days he'll sound just like the studio, some days he's drunk and falling off the stage. Very talented guy, especially as a lyricist, wrote some incredibly beautiful shit in his time. I'm gonna say top of the S tier, sorry Deftones guy. Chris Cornell of Soundgarden. I love this guy too. There shouldn't really be any controversy here. He's one of the greatest to ever touch the microphone. His tone of voice, his range, his live performances. This guy's the actual single GOAT. Also a really great guy. Very loved by everybody that worked with him. Very adored by his fans. Incredible lyricist. Wrote some incredible shit at a lot of different stages in his career with a lot of different bands. They don't make him like this anymore. Top of the GOAT tier. Chuck Schuldiner of Death. You may not know this beautiful son of a bitch, and honestly, if you've only ever heard me talk about him, you might think he sucks. No, dear viewer, this guy, I will boldly say here on YouTube.com, is the greatest death metal vocalist to ever live. Not all that flashy, it's not even all that technically incredible, but it fits the music he writes flawlessly, and it takes no attention away from the absurd instrumentation of Death's music. It wouldn't work in any other scene, but it doesn't get much more efficient than this, especially within death metal. I'm gonna go A tier. Love Billy Corgan. Corey Taylor of Slipknot. There's no real reason for my dislike of Slipknot, but it does in fact exist. Completely irrational bias I have, but even so, I can admit Corey Taylor is an incredible vocalist. I watched him play Snuff live, and my opinion of the man completely flipped. Also a super cool guy, very sweet to his fans. Incredible musician, and a pretty solid songwriter as well. I'm gonna say back of the S tier. You should learn how to say no! Courtney Love of Hole. I'm gonna do the bit again. She killed that guy. This time I'm almost certain. Okay, dear viewer, a couple weeks ago, some private investigators looked into Kurt's death and found ballpark 84 things wrong with the crime scene. So me personally, I think she killed that guy. As a singer, she's okay. Thank you for your time. D tier, above the Nickelback guy. That's kind of fun. D'Angelo. Incredible vocalist, rest in peace, King, but dear viewer, I implore you to attempt to find a picture of this guy with his shirt on. I mean, I'm not complaining, I'm just observing, dear viewer, you understand that, right? As a vocalist, it doesn't get too much better within the R&B scene, I wouldn't say. Every song he writes is absurdly horny, which isn't typically my favorite topic to write 8 albums about, but regardless, the guy's voice was made for that shit. I can't hate too hard. Top of the S tier. Damon Albarn of Blur. I saw this guy in an interview with Nardwuar, and my frown simply could not be turned upside down. Incredibly rude in that interview, at the very least. As a vocalist, pretty solid. Not knocking my socks off good, but definitely good enough to get the job done. Never been a huge fan of any of his work, to be honest. I'm gonna go C tier behind Billy. That's Billy with an I-E and not a Y.
I've got another confession to make.
David Eric Grohl of the Foo Fighters. My parents raised me heavily on Foo Fighters. Please keep this in mind as I continue. Actually, that wasn't really that important. He's not that great. As a musician, one of my favorites to ever do it, but vocally, he's just very solid. Not great, not bad. He was pretty much the coolest guy in the world for a very long time, really down to earth, pretty funny, very kind person. And then he cheated on his wife with a stripper and had a kid with that stripper, so I believe we break even in the character department. Classic Dave, back of the B tier.
Watch him become a god.
And Lane wants to say a few words.
Watch him become a god.
All right then, well, okay.
Dave Mustaine of Megadeth. I love these guys a lot. In the age-old debate, I actually give the very, very slight edge to Megadeth over Metallica. Dave Mustaine as a vocalist, however, maybe one of the worst to ever be successful, to be honest. As a guitar player, one of the best to ever do it. But my biggest gripe with all of Megadeth's music is their lyrics. This guy clearly had something to say, some political jargon, and I appreciate that on the first 3 albums or so. But dear God, please say something new, Dave. I'm not a big fan of the government 77 times is stale at this point. He's also incredibly arrogant, but it's almost to the point that it's cool. He's so full of himself, it's kind of sick. Not a great singer, though. Top of the C tier. David Bowie. His impact on music is undeniable, one of the greatest in the scene, for sure. As a vocalist, I don't have a webcam yet, but if you could see me, I'm shrugging my shoulders. He's probably better than I've given him credit for, to be honest. He's certainly not in that upper echelon of vocalists either. Pretty cool guy. Worked with a lot of my favorite musicians many times. I'm a big fan. Top of the A tier.
There is no pain, you are receding.
David Gilmour of Pink Floyd. I love this man more than several people in my family. I don't know if that's true, but damn it if David Gilmour isn't one of my favorite musicians of all time. His voice, especially on songs like Echoes and Comfortably Numb, is just outright haunting. Seriously an underrated vocalist, crookedly underrated I'd say. S tier, behind Chester, what are you gonna do about it? Fuck you.
You got to roll with the punches and get to what's real.
David Lee Roth of Van Halen. I like his voice, but I don't really think about it while I'm listening. Some vocalists just kind of steal the show with their voice. It's obvious that wasn't really what he was doing. Not that that's a bad thing. I'm just kind of saying shit now. I don't really care about this one. Top of the C tier.
Sunshine in the house in flames. She loves it when she gets it, boy.
Dax Riggs of Acid Bath, a very beloved vocalist from the sludge metal scene. Honestly, I kinda get it, I think maybe. He's certainly got a unique voice, and I'd call it a great one, but I'm not sure I'd go as far as the GOAT tier here. Fairly talented lyricist as well. Though Acid Bath's bag is small, it's pretty deep. I'm gonna go S tier behind Mr. Gilmour.
Lightning crashes, a new mother cries.
Ed Kowalczyk of Live, not to be confused with this other bald white guy. This guy's actually pretty cool. Not the most life-changing vocalist for sure, but a very solid voice from the 90s that often gets overlooked due to kind of the sheer roster of vocalists of that time. I like him. Woodstock is a great show from them. Watch that, maybe. Or don't. I'm not your fucking dad. B tier, behind Bono. Eddie Vedder of Pearl Jam, the second grunge vocalist to enter the tier list, and I must painstakingly admit, probably my least favorite vocalist of the roster. Don't get me wrong, I think the guy genuinely has an incredible voice, and the poetry this guy was writing on albums like 10 and Verses was incredible. But dear God, did this young man overstay his welcome. Many, many relatively mediocre records under his belt. When he was cooking, maybe a super, super low GOAT tier, but looking at the whole entire picture here, best I can do is S tier, I'm afraid, behind Mr. Riggs.
Yet I'm sitting, singing again, sing again.
Fiona Apple, another new addition to the list, and to be honest, another GOAT. A damn incredible voice and one of the most creative lyricists in the scene for sure. I mean, just look at these album titles. I'll read a short one to you here. When the pawn hits the conflicts, he thinks like a king. What he knows throws the blows when he goes to the fight, and he'll win the whole thing, for he enters the ring. There's nobody to batter when your mind is your might, so when you go solo, you hold your own hand, and remember that depth is the greatest of heights. And if you know where you stand, then you know where to land. And if you'd fall, it won't matter, because you'll know that you're right. Why would you do that? A damn powerful voice, though, especially when the production is in its bag. Doesn't get too much better than this. I'm gonna say back at the GOAT tier.
You showed me love.
Frank Ocean, another widely respected R&B GOAT, and for good reason. The guy's got an incredible voice, and while a lot of his lyricism does boil down to kind of sad slop, it's got a great sound to it, and it's also relatively creative. Not a lot of songs flow like Mr. Ocean's do, and at the very least, that nets him some points here. And a great voice, like I said. I'm gonna go S tier, behind Mr. Vedder.
The chocolate starfish and the hot dog flavor.
Fred Durst of Limp Bizkit. I mean, this guy's just a lot of fun. Perhaps the main contributor of the destruction of Woodstock '99. Seems like an alright enough guy as well. Does love to get political on social media, which I could probably live without, but I like the guy. Not gonna come out here and say he's the most talented lyricist to ever do it, but he certainly brings an energy to Limp Bizkit's music that wouldn't be there without him. Not a crazy talented vocalist, though. He's alright. Back at the B tier. Freddie Mercury of Queen. Come on. Easy go tier. I don't even want to waste much more time. A vocalist icon. I'm going above Fiona Apple. Gavin Rosdale of Bush. Guys, I'm not gay, but come on. This guy's gorgeous. Intrusive thought one there. Sorry about that. Nice enough, fella. Pretty uninteresting vocals. Solid lyricist at best as well. Not really writing anything too mesmerizing, but again, kind of gets the job done. Another good enough vocalist, but not one I would highlight for sure. I'm going to go above Alex Turner in the C tier. Gene Ween of Ween, another new inclusion on the list that may have surprised you if you know me as the Ween guy, but no, dear viewer, I was not always the Ween guy. Now being the Ween guy, however, I must do my part and put this guy as high as I can physically put him without vomiting on my floor, and that, dear viewer, somewhere low in the GOAT tier, I think. Genuinely one of my favorite lyricists in music for sure. I'd argue you get genuinely unparalleled creativity from this guy. And he can do most shit with his voice. The poetic ballads, the poopy stinky fart songs. Heck, he could just do it all. I don't think I could put him over Freddie Mercury without, again, vomiting all over my floor. So, right behind Mr. Mercury in the GOAT tier. George Harrison of the Beatles, perhaps a touch underrated in the vocal department, I'd say. I don't think he's got a particularly iconic voice, but the lyricism here is pretty solid, especially on his solo stuff where he has a bit more time to shine. This guy can certainly cook up a nice meal. I'm going to go behind Mr. Corgan in the A tier. Gerard Way of My Chemical Romance. I love this guy. I too was an MCR denier for a majority of my life, but The Black Parade is an incredible album top to bottom. Really unique voice, masterfully used within MCR's music. I like it a lot. Super cool guy too, never heard anything bad about him. Fantastic lyricist as well. Wrote such an incredibly interesting story on The Black Parade, and there's not much to knock on Three Cheers either. Great stuff. I'm gonna go above Mr. Riggs in the S tier. Glenn Danzig of Misfits. Honestly, dear viewer, I'm torn. He's pretty much just crooning. That's not a slur. That's actually a vocal term in which he kind of sounds like Elvis. It's also got this weird dark undertone to it. Honestly, it's really unique and it fits the music very well. It doesn't really gel with me personally. Never been too high on their music, but I can certainly appreciate the artistry here. I'm going to say B tier, above Axl Rose. Greg Lake of King Crimson's early career, most notably that one album with the scary face you see all the music nerds talk about, myself included. Don't think I'm counting myself out there. He's got a damn good voice, especially on tracks like Epitaph, where it just sounds so absurdly grand in a way that I can't really describe to you. Incredible lyricist as well. Though his time with the band was short, it was undisputedly legendary. I'm going to go S tier, behind David Gilmour. Hayley Williams of Paramore, one of the GOATs, and you can fight me on that shit. Live, she's an absolute killer, incredible stage presence, a little annoying on Twitter for sure, but aren't we all? Incredible vocal range, great lyricist. I don't think I'd say excellent, but certainly pretty good, especially in the late 2000s. I'm a huge fan, behind Chester in the S tier. Isaac Hayes, yeah, it's the guy from South Park, but also, yeah, this guy's kind of sick. An incredible voice, you could almost hear peeking through the chef character at times in the show, but he's also a great lyricist. I'm a little newer to his music, so I don't have too many thoughts. From what I've heard, which is exclusively this, he's got a damn beautiful voice. I'm gonna go behind Mr. Gerard Way in the S tier. James Hetfield of Metallica. I mean, he's alright. Incredible guitarist and songwriter, of course, but his vocals have never really struck me as too special. Really cool guy, though. I've seen many interviews where he's just kind of the man. Very down to earth, even as the frontman of one of the biggest bands in the world. B tier. Above this human anomaly. Jesus Christ. James Murphy of LCD Sound System. Pretty solid stuff from this guy right here. Very soft voice that fits the music he wrote perfectly, I think. A lot of his music's got this more upbeat electronic sound, but his voice brings this personal, almost intimate layer to his music. Very talented lyricist as well. Wrote some fun shit, wrote some sad shit, and it all hits. I'm gonna say A tier. Above Chuck. Jeff Buckley, the man himself. Perhaps the singular most beautiful voice I've ever heard in my life. Very short career, but I've seen just about every interview you can see, and he just seemed like the sweetest guy, man. I don't know. I love this guy. Incredible vocal talent, incredible lyricist. Damn you, the Wolf River. Behind Miss Gibbons in the GO tier. Jim Morrison of The Doors. Really interesting character, this guy. Super mysterious fella, but I like him a lot. Very talented vocalist. Perfect for the psychedelic rock he put out. Certainly not the cleanest voice I've ever heard, but again, couldn't fit much better for the music that they were writing. Everything out of this guy's mouth felt like it had this tinge of artistry to it. A truly irreplaceable legend in the scene, I'd say. I'm gonna go S tier. Above Cameron Winter. Jimi Hendrix, another super interesting guy. Died very young, but left a ridiculous impact on the music scene as a whole, but not really as a vocalist. His vocals are good enough. But it's really the instrumentation that sold his music, and of course the guitar work. Seemed like a really cool guy, though. I'm gonna say top of the beats here. Joe Duplantier of Gojira. Another scream as loud as you can guy. That's all I really have to say. Truthfully, I've never understood what the fuck this guy's talking about, even just reading the lyrics. And I doubt that'll ever change. Voice certainly brings an urgency, even an intensity, to Gojira's music. I think of the Yellers, he's one of the better ones. I'm gonna go B tier, behind Brandon Boyd.
You may say I'm a dreamer.
John Lennon of the Beatles, second Beatle mention. I'd probably say the most talented fella in the band. I don't know if that's a hot take. Truthfully, I don't listen to these guys that much. Certainly like his voice. I wouldn't call it incredible again, but it's another voice that gets the job done. Very talented lyricist, though. I don't really know who was doing what back in their heyday, but a lot of the shit this guy touched seemed to turn to gold. I'm gonna go above Dax Riggs in the S tier. John Mayer, pretty talented motherfucker for a while there. Sadly, looking at the whole picture, this guy peaked fairly early on in his career and then never really got back to that level. Absurd guitarist, of course, but I do think he has a really beautiful voice as well. Certainly not the most interesting lyricist to ever live. Actual kind of sad slop from almost every direction when you listen to this guy. But it's got its place in that teenage white girl Spotify library. I'm gonna go back of the A tier. Jonathan Davis of Korn. He wrote some horrifically dark music. He led the nu metal genre. Kind of the man. Vocally pretty great, especially for the nu metal style. He does that weird shit, and that's always fun. I don't think it would work with a lot of other genres of music, but it does encapsulate the nu metal genre to me, I think, pretty well. I'm gonna say B tier, behind Brandon Boyd. Josh Homme of Queens of the Stone Age. A very middle-of-the-road vocalist, I think. When you bring his lyricism into the conversation, he certainly goes up a couple places. But vocally, he's another voice that's getting the job done, but not necessarily elevating the music itself. Wrote some damn beautiful shit, though, especially on Like Clockwork. Very creative fella. I'm gonna say A tier, behind Mr. Corgan. Julian Casablancas of The Strokes. I love this guy's voice. Personal favorite of mine. Go listen to Ode to the Mets if you think I'm off my rocker with that take. Incredible lyricism on that track specifically. He certainly wasn't in his bag throughout his whole career, but when he hits, he does hit fairly hard. Pretty cool guy. I haven't heard much bad about him. Great vocal range. Incredible vocalist. I'm going to say behind Frank Ocean in the S tier. Kurt Cobain of Nirvana. Forgive me, Nirvana fangirls, but Kurt is far and away my least favorite vocalist from the grunge era. That's right, I lied when I said Eddie Vedder was the worst. Still a really great vocalist, though. I find his voice sounds best on the unplugged session, but his voice never really hit me like the rest of those guys did. Lyrics have never really been Nirvana's forte either. They never really cut too deep, but they do the trick, I'd say. I'm gonna go A tier, behind Mr. Corgan. Lane Staley of Alice in Chains. This is the GOAT. No voice has ever really hit me personally as hard as this man's has, to be honest. He nails the acoustic shit on Jar of Flies. He's got maybe the greatest voice in metal, on albums like Facelift and Dirt. They really just don't make him like this anymore. I don't think we'll ever see a vocalist as talented as this guy ever again, to be honest. Absurdly good lyricist as well. Tracks like Nutshell and Love Hate Love come to mind for me. It's just being incredibly vulnerable and powerful tracks. I'm gonna say top of the GOAT tier. Les Claypool of Primus. There, I said it right. Leave me alone. I think it would be disingenuous to call Les Claypool a great vocalist. I think he does get the job done. But his voice is not why people listen to Primus. You know what I mean? People listen to Primus to... Actually, I'm not sure why. I've never been a huge fan. Sorry, Primus fans. Back of the C tier. Liam Gallagher of Oasis. My last video, I'm afraid I egregiously overrated this young man. I do think he has a very unique and borderline iconic voice, but I think I probably blew it slightly out of proportion. He's got like one thing he does, and it sounds like the shit. But you're not getting much range from this guy for sure. I wouldn't say you're getting the greatest lyricism either. I'm gonna go A tier, behind Amy Lee. Liz Fraser of Cocteau Twins. Eddie Vedder of pop, I'd say. And by that I mean I have pretty much no fucking idea what she's saying. But I know it sounds good. Got a damn incredible voice, one of the greatest in the scene, to be perfectly honest. And as long as I have my trusty lyric sheet by my side, I'm having a blast. Incredible range as well. Lyrically, if you can somehow make out what the fuck she's saying, I think she does a pretty good job. Maybe not an excellent one, but definitely a good one. I'm gonna go above Chester in the S tier. M. Shadows of Avenged Sevenfold. Here, I'm torn. On one hand, he's got an incredibly unique voice, and on the other, much larger hand, he kinda sucks, I think. Certainly some creative lyricism buried in their catalog, but a lot of his stuff I find incredibly surface-level metal made for your uncle to say that he likes metal. Not the worst by any means, but not really doing too much for me either. I'm gonna go B tier, behind Dave Grohl. Mark Lanigan of the Screaming Trees. First off, this is the sickest picture I've ever seen in my entire life. God damn, he was cool. As a vocalist, another pretty iconic voice from the 90s. Very unique, pretty electric. Lyrically, I don't know too much about the guy's work, but there's certainly an energy he brings to any project he kind of appears on. Everything a little grittier, a little darker. Perfect for grunge, and perfect for really everything he went on to do. I'm gonna say above Eddie Vedder in the S tier. Marvin Gaye, another one of the greatest voices to ever grace the R&B scene. This guy flat out probably the GOAT of the genre, I'd say. Wrote some incredibly powerful music when he wasn't writing the horniest shit you've ever heard. And when he was writing the horniest shit you've ever heard, he was doing a damn good job of doing so. Absurdly talented guy. Back of the GOAT tier. Matt Bellamy of Muse, more like Matt Fraudlamy. That made more sense in my head. To be honest, this video is getting long, and I have very little to say about Muse. He's good, better than a lot, to be honest, but not one of the greats, no way. Got some great range, but never really connected lyrically with me. I'm gonna say B tier, above Bono. Maynard James Keenan of Tool. I finally get to go back to my roots and do a little Maynard glazing. As a lyricist, I'm gonna say he's my personal favorite of all time. Another lyricist that's relatively unmatched creatively, and a guy that could really just write a song about almost anything. Very introspective and kind of profound lyricism throughout his whole career. That alone would probably put him in the GOAT tier for me. But I haven't even talked about the absurdity that is his voice. The guy's a freak, or at least he was. Sometimes he'd yell for just like 30 seconds. Guys, we're not supposed to be able to do that shit. You fucking try. Go ahead. Yell for 30 seconds straight. Don't do one of those fraudulent yells. That motherfucker Maynard screamed at the top of his lungs for 30 seconds straight. He's also got brilliant range, one of the most unique voices I've ever heard. This is a GOAT for sure. I'm gonna go behind Lane. Mick Jagger of the Rolling Stones. An unfathomably iconic name, but I don't think his vocals were too out of this world. More so his stage presence. I think his vocals are good enough, but certainly not the selling point of the Stones. I haven't heard enough of their stuff to really critique anything lyrically, so that's all I have, actually. I'm gonna go above Hetfield in the B tier. Michael Gira of Swans, to be honest, an incredibly hard vocalist to place. I view his voice almost as an instrument within Swans' music, just kind of another piece of this larger-than-life puzzle they try to create, and in that context it works wonders. It's just not a voice I can really hook myself on. As a lyricist, he's fairly hit or miss, I'd say. When he wants to, he delivers a beautifully human track like Blind. But I find most of the time he's just spitting some hoopla, or at the very least some shit I can't wrap my teeny tiny brain around. I'm gonna say A tier behind Amy Lee. Michael Stipe of R.E.M. I'm actually going to save some time here, I think. I don't know much apart from the hits and the one or two albums I've heard that have genuinely flown in one year and out the same year, actually. Talented guy, not knocking my socks off, perfectly average vocalist, above Dave Grohl in the B tier. Mikael Akerfeldt of Opeth, another tricky one to rate. He's got the harsh vocals and the soft vocals. The soft vocals I enjoy quite a bit. I find them to be great breaks on tracks when they're used effectively. The harsh vocals, me no like. Right on the edge of growling, not quite in that cryptopsy doo-doo garbage category, but damn close. As a lyricist, he's pretty good. Not too much more than that, I wouldn't say. B tier, above Brandon Boyd. How many times have I said that? Mike Patton of Mr. Bungle and Faith No More. Now this guy's a goat. I severely underrated him last time, just kind of out of a lack of familiarity with the guy's work, but over the last year or so I found myself loving this guy's voice. Very unique. There's not really a note I haven't heard this guy hit. Maybe just the greatest range of all time. And another one of the most creative lyricists to ever do it as well. Inexplicable jargon on a lot of his shit, but when he decides to hit you with a little tenderness, he rivals pretty much any other vocalist. Let's say go tier, behind Mr. Buckley. Morrissey of the Smiths. Oh, Morrissey. One of the most unique voices I've ever heard, and it's a really powerful one when coupled with his lyrical wit, for sure. Very, very good vocalist. Dare I say better than Robert Smith? Probably not, huh? Thought I could get away with that, but I could feel you staring blankly into your phone. Terrible person, though. Racist, insufferable asshole, super pompous, the list goes on. Still taking his shirt off on stage at the ripe age of 65. And Morrissey, please stop making music, man. It's over. It's okay that it's over, but it is over. Above John Lennon in the S tier.
Gathered in their masses.
Ozzy Osbourne of Black Sabbath, first and foremost, rest in peace, GOAT. Second, and I suppose, second most. One of the most unique voices to ever hit the metal scene, I'd say. Also one of the greatest voices to ever hit the metal scene. Incredibly iconic voice. You know it when you hear it kind of thing. He ate the bat that one time, that was pretty neat. Lyrically not the sharpest through his whole career, but early on when he still had some shit to say, he wrote some fairly solid stuff. I'm gonna say A tier, above John Mayer. Paul Banks of Interpol. Fairly talented guy. Another incredibly unique voice that worked really well on a project like Turn on the Bright Lights, but I wouldn't say it's aged the best, and he's been fairly mediocre on their last 2 or 3 albums. Lyrically, I gotta say I'm a pretty big fan. Sounds incredibly genuine, very personal, and again kind of intimate on those earlier records. I'm a fan. I'm gonna say A tier. Above the Stained guy.
Hey Jude, don't make it bad.
Paul McCartney of the Beatles. Maybe you've heard of this guy. One of the greatest songwriters to ever live, but his voice itself never really knocked my socks off, I wouldn't say. It's a voice your uncle will glaze until the day he dies, but me personally, I find it effective at best. I must reiterate, one of the greatest songwriters to ever live, but his voice never clicked with me all that hard. I'm gonna say A tier, above Chuck. Peter Steele of Typo Negative. My true opinion is that he's pretty mid, but in this picture he looks like he's gonna rip my arms off and then jam them into the soles of my feet. So out of fear. I love this guy's voice, but really it is a great voice, almost opera-like at points. While I'm not a huge fan of Typo Negative as a band, hard to deny how incredible this guy's voice really is. I'm gonna say A tier, above Ozzy. Phil Anselmo of Pantera. Brace yourself, dear viewer. I've come with a brand new fun fact for you today. Phil Anselmo of Pantera is borderline outwardly a white supremacist. Here's a picture of him doing a Nazi salute. I'm not huge on the guy for the reasons I've listed above, but as a singer, I honestly think he's a little overrated. I've heard a lot of glaze for this guy, and I can't say I see why. He's certainly got his moments, but I don't think he does an indiscernible job from a guy like James Hetfield, who also does so while not being a racist prick. Racism tact moves him down to the top of C.
I've been set free, there's no breeze, there's no ship on my sea.
Bill Elverum of the Microphones, easily one of the greatest songwriters of all time, I'd say, comfortably. Able to just deliver a soul-crushing piece no matter what you're really sad about. Grieving? You can cry here. Girlfriend doesn't love you anymore? Cry here. One of the most talented lyricists to ever live. His voice itself, I think, merely just gets the job done. It's just kind of a vehicle for the words themselves. That sounded cool, huh? But the way that the vocals themselves aren't really jaw-dropping, or even particularly captivating, but the words themselves hit like trucks. It's not really about the delivery, it's more about the message. I hope this helped. I'm going to say A tier, behind Bowie.
I lost my heart under the
AJ Harvey, honestly, I don't know. I haven't heard a plethora of her music, but I thought she belonged on the list. And from what I've heard, she's got a pretty solid voice. She's a pretty solid lyricist. End of my sentence, too many people to cover. I'll say A tier, above whichever Gallagher this is. Prince, one of the most iconic musicians to ever live, and deservedly so. Of course, when you think of Prince, the first thing you probably think of is the legendary guitar player, but he also had a pretty sweet voice. I wouldn't say he was as good of a singer as he was as a guitar player, but it certainly brought another layer to his music. Pretty talented lyricist as well, wrote some very powerful shit many times, to be honest. Slightly underrated vocalist, I think. I want to go behind Mr. Gilmore in the S tier, both as a guitarist and a vocalist. Please don't come after me.
When you're on a holiday, you can't
Rivers Cuomo of Weezer. I hate these guys. That's not really true, but they're not that good, man. Painfully average band, painfully average vocalist. I'm running out of time. C tier, above the Bush guy.
There's a feeling I get when I look.
Robert Plant of Led Zeppelin. Another vocalist I underrated quite a bit in my last video. Luckily, about 300 comments were not shy about informing me of so. Having listened to far more Led Zeppelin in the last year, I can confirm that without a doubt, I wasn't really that far off. Incredible vocalist at points, that's what I'll say, at points. When he was on, he was on. Earlier Zeppelin projects display that beautifully, but later projects, As a lyricist, fairly incredible. A lot of it just comes down to trying to figure out what the fuck he's trying to say. But shit like that keeps people coming back to the music. I certainly underrated the guy, but I still probably don't think he's quite in the GOAT tier for me. I'm gonna go top of the S tier. Robert Smith of The Cure. Now this is a Robert I can get behind. Maybe my favorite Robert of all time, though I'd have to think about it more. Never quote me on that. I love this guy's voice a lot. I think there's genuinely no one else that sounds like him, and it lends itself perfectly to The Cure's music. Incredible songwriter as well, has written some incredibly sad shit and some incredibly sweet shit. That's what I like to see out of my Roberts. I'm actually going to put him behind Robert Plant. I just kind of wanted to do that Robert bit. And I do like him as a person more. S tier, above Chester. Roger Waters of Pink Floyd, probably my least favorite of the three Pink Floyd vocalists, purely in terms of vocal talent. I do think Roger Waters is maybe the best songwriter of the three. That's a topic for a slightly different day. I think his vocal presence is absolutely necessary on Pink Floyd's music, though, but I always find that voice kind of overshadowed, whether it was Syd Barrett or David Gilmour. Very good lyricist, though. That I can give him. I'm going to say top of the B tier for Roger Waters. Ronnie James Dio of Black Sabbath, perhaps the most commented vocalist on my last video, and after checking him out, I don't get it. I'm not really going to argue his vocal talent, that's pretty much undeniable, but it just doesn't do all that much for me. It's good in a way that I can appreciate the fact that it is good. That's really all it makes me feel. No emotion pours out of me when I hear this guy sing. I just say, that was pretty good. I'm going to put him behind Ozzy, because I think that makes sense. Scott Stapp of Creed, just about as talented of a lyricist as the Nickelback guy for sure, but a far better singer. Guy really does have a great voice, though it does sound the exact same on every song he's ever recorded. It's not a bad sound, though. Lyrically, I find his stuff pretty hollow and empty, but I'm sure that's not a surprise for you to hear about Creed. I'm going to say above Axl Rose in the B tier. Scott Weiland of the Stone Temple Pilots, dare I say the most underrated vocalist of the grunge era. Scott might actually be my personal second favorite. I think it would be disingenuous of me to put him above Chris Cornell, but he's seriously a freakishly talented vocalist. The Unplugged session alone is a greatest of all time performance, I'd say, but through the course of his career, he threw up several phenomenal shows. Really talented lyricist as well, wrote the far superior Creep. The list goes on, and it's my list. I do what I want, therefore, GOAT tier, above Gene Ween. Serge Tankian of System of a Down, another one of my GOATs. Incredible range, his ability to just completely change his voice between verses is almost unparalleled. He can do the yelling, he can do the soft shit, he can genuinely do it all. Super unique voice as well, very distinguishable, very powerful, perfect for their kind of music. and a damn good lyricist as well. And say above Chester in the S tier.
I cannot stop the flow running.
Sean Morgan of Seether. I like him enough. Pretty accurately rated though. He's a solid vocalist, not one of the goats by any means. I do love a lot of his acoustic stuff though. I think his voice works much better in those settings. Songwriting is just very average here. Never wrote anything too profound and stayed within the relatively tight constraints of butt rock throughout his whole career. I'm gonna say B tier, behind Bono. Shinji Sato of Fishmans. Oh yeah. I hadn't yet entered my fish phase when I made the last one. This is one of my favorite musicians to ever live. Of course, there's a language barrier between me and the late GOAT, but regardless of that, his voice is able to almost pierce my soul with its beauty and almost shatter that barrier. That sounded pretty cool, huh? Excellent voice that makes his music almost sound like a dream to me, like it's off in the distance in your mind. As a lyricist, I don't know. In the wise words of Edward Richtofen on April 19, 2016, I don't speak Japanese. GOAT tier, behind the buck.
That I could never have you. I knew that before.
Stefan Jenkins of Third Eye Blind. Were you to look up the word average in one of those books old people use to find the definitions of words, you'd see this son of a bitch staring back at you. Very briefly a talented singer, kind of fell off pretty quick. Their self-titled record holds up really well, I'd say. Solid lyricism throughout that project. A lot of it can be boiled down to kind of sad slop, but it's done pretty tastefully, I'd say. I refuse to put him below Scott Stapp, so I'm going to put him one spot. I refuse to put him below the Creed guy, so one spot above the Creed guy in the B tier. Steve Perry of Journey. Another highly requested guy. This one I kinda understand, I think. Really talented guy, especially on that one song from The Sopranos. Just does a lot of the heavy lifting in Journey's music, to be honest. Kinda tells you how great his voice is. Lyrically, it's kinda upbeat, kinda fun, kinda cool. I like it. Incredibly iconic shit, for sure. I'm gonna go A tier above Mr. Hines. Steven Tyler of Aerosmith. Another moderately underrated vocalist, I guess. He doesn't do anything super special, but I hear his voice and I know it's an Aerosmith song. His voice almost ties their music together in my opinion. I'm just kidding. I have no idea what I'm talking about. Come on. B tier, above the Korn guy. Stevie Nicks of Fleetwood Mac. Sensational vocalist. Pretty great range, very distinguishable voice. I'm a big fan. I do find her to be the far better vocalist in the group by a fairly wide margin. I'm not the biggest Fleetwood Mac guy in the world. I'm certainly a fan of Stevie Nicks' vocals, for sure. Pretty good lyricist, too. Again, I'm not incredibly in touch with their stuff, but the stuff I have heard has at the very least been interesting. Behind Mr. Casablancas in the S tier. Stevie Wonder, a GOAT, and I don't want to elaborate too much. Incredible songwriter, maybe the greatest of all time. It's not what I'm talking about today, though. As a vocalist, I think he's S tier, and no further, I'm afraid. A lot of his songs do have the same vocal cadence to them. It's a solid cadence, and I find Stevie's music to be far more about the vibes themselves. I wouldn't put the vocals in some elite tier. As a lyricist, though, truly no one can make me smile like this guy. That's a power in and of itself, and that's him a spot at the tippity top of the S tier. Sting of the Police, come on. What a legendary voice this freak has. Pretty solid lyricist at best, I'm afraid, but man, his voice is just so iconic, it's kind of hard for me to explain. Huge fan of this guy's vocals, not as huge on his songwriting, but another artist that when he does hit, it's pretty hard. I'm going to go above Steve Perry in the A tier.
Where everything was fiction, future and prediction now.
Sufjan Stevens, I liken to the exact position I put Phil Elverum in. I think they do very similar things, both some genuinely absurd lyricists, both not exactly changing my life with their vocals themselves. I do prefer Sufjan's vocals to those of Phil's, not by a crazy amount. I'm going to go one spot above Phil in the A tier. Susumu Hirasawa, a voice that genuinely might just stick with me for the rest of my life. Incredibly haunting sound to it, but also an unparalleled beauty to it. A voice I can't explain. Just kind of one you have to hear. As a lyricist, again, I don't know. Edward Richtofen, yada yada. I'm going to say, back at the GOAT tier. Syd Barrett of Pink Floyd, the first vocalist for Pink Floyd, crashed out super hard after he took a little too much acid, but his time with the band is a very interesting one to look back on, at the very least. Pretty good vocalist, and a major reason the band is where they are today. Of course, there would be no Dark Side of the Moon with Syd Barrett. The charm of his voice is undeniable. As a songwriter, his borderline schizophrenia is kind of incredibly apparent in the lyrics he wrote, but it adds an all too dark yet kind of surreal layer to everything he did. I like it, it's interesting, it's cool. Top of the beats here. Tatsuro Yamashita, another new goat of mine. This guy's voice is genuine magic. I don't actually want to speak on it anymore in hopes that you go listen to it yourself and help conduct my pyramid scheme of spreading this music to everyone in the world. Behind Jeaner in the goat tier. Thomas York of Radiohead. I am a big Radiohead fan. Tom York is an absolutely sensational vocalist, and I think denying that is coping with a dislike of their music. The way Radiohead's music has transformed over the years, and watching Tom kind of just match every era, every style with his voices, it's incredible. No man has made me cry like this beautiful bastard has either with his lyrics. One of the greatest lyricists to ever live. Incredible vocalist, above Freddie Mercury in the GOAT tier. Sorry. Trent Reznor of the Nine Inch Nails. I truly believe Nine Inch Nails' success has literally nothing to do with Trent Reznor's voice. I think almost anyone could be singing for them, but no one can write music and lyrics like Trent can. I don't think he's particularly notable as a singer. Well, he's certainly got his moments, but as a lyricist, I'd put him in the first round of the draft. Bird is always a beautiful song to watch him perform live as well. He's pretty great live. I'm going to say A tier, behind the Interpol guy. Valerie Cooper of Sweet Trip, another newer artist to myself, but there's genuinely something I can't describe about her voice. I don't know, for real, that's it. It's almost hypnotic, it's soothing yet anxious. It's genuinely one of the greatest voices I've ever heard. Pretty talented lyricist too, from what I have heard. I certainly need to learn more about these guys, but as of now, I think I'm going to go GOAT tier, behind Shinji. Wayne Coyne of the Flaming Lips. I don't really know what to put this guy. Would this voice work in a singular other area of music? God, no. But with the subject matter and even just the vibe of the Flaming Lips, it just kind of works. Really talented lyricist too, able to turn almost anything into a song. It's an absurd talent, and I like the guy a lot. He's got great vibes. Say B tier, behind Brandon Boyd for the last time. Will Toledo of Car Seat Headrest, another tricky guy to rank. From a bird's eye view, an unbiased perspective, the guy's voice is fairly wonky. But I think when you tie together the lyrical talent and almost erraticness of those lyrics and his vocal style, you get what I'd call a good time. Maybe a bad time, certainly a sad time. Really talented guy. I think his voice works perfectly for what he does. He's got to be one of my favorite lyricists ever, even if he does occasionally come on a little strong. Let's say top of the A tier for Mr. Toledo. And last but not least, Zach De La Rocha of Rage Against the Machine. A hard vocalist to rank again, as he doesn't really sing, he kind of just yells at you over metal music. I love their music, and the more I think about it, I think it's kind of because he's yelling at me. Genuinely one of my favorite lyricists to ever live as well. Sometimes he'll just tell you to go fuck yourself, and you just gotta keep on head bobbing. Not the most technically talented guy to ever touch the mic, but certainly a perfect fit for Rage's music. Sit behind the Interpol guy in the A tier. That's all I have written here. Thank you very much for watching, dear viewer. Be sure to let me know how much of a dumbass I am in the comments, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace.